Hello, and welcome to Addicted Like Us, a podcast discussing all things written by Krista and Becca Ritchie. I'm your host, Haley, and today I have two very special guests, Krista and Becca, here to tease Destructively Mine Book 2 in the Webs We Weave series. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. I got to try really hard not to talk over Krista because that's just what we do.
Yeah, we really do I realized too, I think that in like Zooms and podcasts, I feel like it's different than real life. I feel like there's like a cadence where like you know when to like not talk over somebody, but like in podcasting you're like, wait a minute, it takes a second to get used to, you know?
Yeah, I've editing all of these podcasts. I've completely noticed when I'll just start talking and someone else is like trying to insert a thought. I'm like, I sound so mean right now because I won't let anyone else get a word in.
No.
No, I've listened to the Addicted Like Us pod and it's so good. I'm obsessed.
Thank you. Well, we're very happy to have you on. Really quickly for the listeners, we're going to be talking about book 2 in a series, so it's very possible there will be spoilers mentioned for Dishonestly Yours. So if you haven't read Dishonestly Yours yet, maybe go read that and then be ready for book 2 and all of the teases that are gonna be in this podcast. So you've been warned.
Yeah, especially because book 1 does end on quite a twist.
It sure does.
So yeah, you don't want to be spoiled for that.
No, you don't. But yeah, I think we can just kind of jump into it. I've got a bunch of questions from myself and from other readers that submitted questions, and then you guys mentioned that you had some teases that you wanted to share too. We'll start off with not so much a teaser, but just clarifying how many books are planned for the Webs We Weave series, and then are they all going to be in Phoebe and Rocky's point of view?
Yes. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah. Krista, is your mic on?
No, that's the one thing I forgot to hook up my mic. I'm just talking through my webcam. Why does it sound bad?
No, I'm just not. Sorry, y'all. I'm just not used to Krista. I was
Honestly,
like, something's different with Krista's voice here, but maybe this is good because people will be able to tell us apart.
so here's the situation. Like, we mostly do like Zooms, and we've never done a podcast on someone else's podcast, so this is like epic.
Yes, we have.
We have, but not usually.
I think
Not
we've done it twice. I think we've done it twice.
Not since we've separated.
Yeah, not since we've separated. That is a good.
So like in
Physically separated, we've moved out from each other. This is a real derailment. This is just how we go, okay?
Let me just derail this for 1 second. So the situation is, in my head, I was like, I don't need my microphone because, like, when I do normal Zooms and stuff, I don't have my mic. But then I saw Becca had her mic, and I was like, oh my God, Krista, this is a podcast. What are you doing?
This is a professional podcast.
I tried to hook up my mic, but I can't switch the audio out of my webcam right now. So you're just getting webcam, Krista. But like Becca said, I think that's fine because our voices actually might be like a little different.
Yeah, I mean, the sound quality will definitely help, but I've definitely done a couple of episodes with my computer mic because I'm pretty sure Phoebe had like grabbed the cord while it was plugged into my computer. It like got caught on her foot and she ran and it like tore the cable, and I was like, what did you do? This is an expensive microphone. So it wasn't working for a little bit. I think it's working now. I hope it's working now.
It definitely is working now.
Okay, so to answer your question, there are 3 books in the Webs We Weave series. It's a trilogy. We sort of structured it as a trilogy when we conceptualized the series. And the first 2 books are in Phoebe and Rocky's POV. And we cannot really say what POVs are in the 3rd book, but we'll just say by the time you get to the 3rd book, it's a very ensemble, and you sort of understand why by the end of the 2nd book, if that makes sense.
I think so. Okay, so I know you've mentioned before you have like an elevator pitch for Dishonestly Yours, but like, do you have an elevator pitch for Destructively Mine? Like, what is it about?
I feel like sequels are a little bit harder for elevator pitches just because you don't want to spoil too much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Krista, do you have a good one?
I mean, I think just like the elevator pitch for the whole series is, two families of con artists, six characters, and they are taking over this small town on the coast, New England coast. And
Yeah.
I feel like that is quintessentially what the books are about, but then there's also like, of course, romance
Yeah,
inside of that.
with Phoebe and Rocky, and it's like the whole idea of okay, they've been con artists their whole lives and they've pretended to be everything under the sun with each other, lovers, exes, siblings, best friends. And it's like, well, really, what are they to each other for real? And what type of relationship do they have outside of grifting? And when Phoebe goes to this new little coastal town with her best friend, who happens to be Rocky's little sister, to start a new, fresh, honest life. What type of life is that? And Rocky following them definitely complicates things because he was not, part of her honest life. Things get super complicated in book one, and by book two, it opens and it's just as messy where it's like, well, what are Phoebe and Rocky to each other? What is going on? What is going to happen? And yeah.
That was like the opposite of an elevator pitch,
I
but you know
know
what?
I'm not yeah, I need to press like hold on the elevator button and have someone stuck in there with me for a while.
We're going up like it's a 50-story building, I think, is your
Yeah.
elevator.
It's either
Yes.
a tall elevator or you're stuck on the elevator pitch.
So, what tropes can we expect to see in this book? And of those tropes, do you have like a favorite?
I think that this one is what do we always say, Krista? Boy obsessed. And then it's obviously best friends, older brother. There's fake dating in it, but I
It's
feel
not
like
between the love interests, so it's like
yeah,
fake dating. That's not, it is a trope, but it's not like the romance trope in the book.
but I love it so much for this series because in essence Phoebe and Rocky have been fake everything to each other. So it's like fake dating on steroids because it's like, well, that's my position with her. That's what I always take. But in this instance, why am I not that person to her? I don't know. It's very interesting. I love when it's sort of like flipped on its head a little bit. Um, yeah,
I
so
think
that's probably my favorite aspect. That and I like when a guy pines and grovels and just is obsessed with the girl.
that's what I was gonna say. Boy obsessed is probably my favorite trope in Destructively Mine because I think that Rocky's like pining is just heightened so heavily in this one. Like he just takes it to like the upteenth degree, and I love that. I love that it kind of their dynamic shifts a little in that direction.
Yeah, and he's like so protective. I've been rereading a lot of like our Addicted series and Like Us books, and I just feel like he really is a combination of Connor and Lo. Like every time I reread them, yeah, he has like definitely like certain aspects of them, and I love Rocky.
It's good. We all love Rocky. Okay, so we've left off on a really big cliffhanger in Dishonestly Yours. Can you tell us a little bit about like where Destructively Mine is going to pick up with? Like where does Destructively Mine start?
It actually starts right exactly where you leave off in Dishonestly Yours. There's not very much time wasted. So it's a really good continuation. Once this book releases, this is going to be a great binge series because it literally just, gets you right back into the fold from the end. So you're not going to be confused about much about what's going on, and you're going to start to get answers sort of right away. There's a lot going on, but yeah. What do you think, Krista?
Yeah, no, it picks up right where it left off. I was trying to figure out because we're obviously I think that this Destructively Mine, we've talked about this a lot, but it's so more difficult, so more. I don't know, it's much more, that's the word. It's much more difficult to like recall things from Destructively Mine than probably any of our other books because we rewrote it so much to the point where like there are versions of the book that like will never see the light of day. They've been axed. But in my head I'm like, did that make the book?
Yeah, did that
Because
make the cut?
I've read the final copy multiple times at this point, but at the same time, it's like we have worked on this book probably, would you say over the course of like a full year, like off and on?
Yeah, it was at least 9 months we worked on it. And but granted, the beginning never changed. The
Yeah.
very beginning was always the same. So
Yeah. So
that
it always started
you
exactly
shouldn't
where
shouldn't be confused about that, Krista.
I'm not confused about that, but I was thinking about Dangerously Ours,
Yeah.
which we have written, and then I was like, where did that book start? And then I was like, wait, some stuff in Dangerously Ours and Destructively Mine, which one's which? And then I just confused myself, and I realized a big part of it is because Destructively Mine has been rewritten so much. It is very difficult to recall things. Like, I don't think that we've rewritten a book as much beside the other book that we rewrote
The
just
most
the most besides this one was
was
Kiss the
Kiss the
Sky.
Sky.
But yeah, it's
This
wild.
this one was our most fine-tooth combed crafted novel we've ever written.
Yeah, because we just kept discarding
But
everything.
again, this was like a 2-second question and we just took like 30 minutes
That's
to
okay.
answer
That
it.
was going to be another question that I was going to ask. Like, you guys have mentioned that you've scrapped like 100,000 words from this, and like without spoiling, what was that like? But
It was honestly, we knew the book was not good. Like when
Yeah.
we first finished it, we were like almost in tears and we were like, this is not what we envisioned. This is not great. But we couldn't figure out how to make it better. Like we were
Like
very confused and
we
we had to step away from it.
like actually turned it into our agent and we said this book isn't done. Like we didn't
Well,
even
it was
finish it.
physically, I mean, it was like physically complete, but it was like not good.
Yeah, we were like, this is all gonna get changed. You're gonna read this and you're gonna be like, are these girls on crack? Like, this is like so, like, it was so bad. It was almost like embarrassing, but at the same time, we had to turn in something. We were like up against a deadline and we didn't know how to fix it, was like the biggest thing. And I don't think we've ever been in that situation where like we wrote something and we like couldn't figure out what was wrong. And that's why we really love our agent and our editor because both of their like suggestions helped us so much and we are like, okay, that was the problem, like we completely figured it out, but it took 2 rewrites to
It
actually
was
fix it.
Yeah, it was like a light bulb moment, but the suggestions to fix it would completely reconstruct the novel. It wasn't like we just took the end or middle and just deleted it. It was like playing surgery and like taking pieces from the end and pulling them to the beginning and like intertwining lines and things that we did like and that could salvage. So a lot got rewritten, but we had to like save a lot too from the novel. And it turned out to be like when I think about this book, I'm like, this is one of the proudest books we've ever constructed, ever written. It will probably be one of our favorite books of all time. I just love it so much. And I think because we had the time to really do that and fix it and make it the best it could be was such a saving grace. And it turned out to be absolutely everything we could have wanted for it and more.
Yeah, I don't know what we would have done if we didn't have the time because like I
We've
think about
never
that
put
first
any
version, we would have never published that.
We would
Like
have never published it.
it was just so bad.
We've never published anything that we haven't loved like 100%. I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything that we've put out there that we, in the moment, like when we press publish, that we haven't felt like totally confident about. Other than like, I remember Hot House Hour to this day, we press publish and I started crying because I knew that there was like some typos and I was like bawling about the typos. We didn't have time to fix them. And that's its own beast. Okay. The typos I can move past, but like actual story structure,
Right.
content, yeah, totally different thing.
Yeah, things you can't like just like go back and just like fix really quickly.
yeah, yeah, not like a tiny little change and you can re-upload the file. Like it's a
Yeah,
brand new book at that point. But can
exactly.
confirm, like since I've read the book already, yes, this book is like dis- dishonestly yours, so good. It's like here, and then destructively mine's like all the way up here. It's just like a crazy book. It's so good. It's a chonker.
Yeah.
Can, if anyone's seen the arc, like some of us have been posting pictures of the arc, and like it's a thick book, and I'm a slow eyeball reader, and I still flew through that book. I was like, I need answers. I need to know what's going on. And yeah, you guys did a good job with it.
That was one thing that we weren't worried about when we were redoing it, was the pacing. We were like, the pacing's pretty hardcore in this.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So we were never like really concerned, and we're very fortunate that we were never really given a page limit. And I'm like, that's music to my ears.
It's music to the reader who loves really, really thick books. Yeah, I like to hear that too. Okay, so this next question, a little bit of a spoiler for Dishonestly Yours. So again, if you have not read it, cover your ears. At the end of Dishonestly Yours, I was personally left wondering what happened with the conversation between Jake and Rocky that they were meant to have about ending the fake relationship between Phoebe and Jake. So I don't know if you can say it. 1, did the conversation happen? Will the conversation happen? 2, what can we expect to see from Phoebe and Rocky's relationship in this book?
Yeah, so that conversation actually does happen, and it's right at the beginning of the novel. So it's something that you're going to really see in Destructively Mine. And we thought a while about, like, do we include this? But it was just too good of like a situation not to show. I was like, I need to see it. Okay. And the status of Phoebe and Rocky's relationship is, it's still extremely messy, but I think that in Destructively Mine, it becomes more intense and sort of romantic and physical. This book is a lot steamier than the first book. And you'll see why it becomes more sort of physically intense than the other one. There's sort of a reason, an emotional reason about it. And it's things that Rocky has to do in this book that makes things a little bit more complicated. You really see him in his sort of element of being the sort of silver tongue of the con artist gang. So family.
Okay, so that's kind of the status of Phoebe and Rocky. Also, at the end of the book, we finally have our little merry band of criminals. They're finally all together in Victoria. What can we expect from Haley, Nova, Oliver, and Trevor in this book?
I think likewise, like Becca just said, Rocky becomes, you see him be that silver tongue. I think that with the side characters and Haley, Nova, Oliver, and Trevor, you also see why they have these monikers, why Haley is the mastermind, why Nova is the getaway, why Oliver is the chameleon, and Trevor the psychopath. Like, you get to understand basically their function within the group so much more. And I love it because book 1 really was just an introduction where they're like coming together, and book 2 is really, okay, you're gonna see them work as a unit. Like, how do they actually work? And I love it because I'm obsessed with ensemble casts, and it was so much fun to like show like the dynamics of everyone in that way.
Yeah, and they all have different motivations too, and reasons for being in Connecticut and why they're staying there. Victoria, this town. Yeah, and Krista and I sort of harken this back to the originals on the Vampire Diaries when they sort of come in, like they're talked about, they're sort of larger than life, and that's sort of book 1 with Dishonestly Yours, and then they come in, but book 2 is really getting to know sort of the original family, whatever. If you watch the Vampire Diaries, you would know. But yeah, it's sort of like getting really to know them on a much deeper level. So more chaos, more fun.
Yeah, I would say I don't think in Dishonestly Yours we ever really got to see like all 6 of them work on a con together that I remember. So like seeing them all together and like showing how they have earned these monikers. Like, yeah, I think you get a better sense of it in this one because it's like the first time we see them all in one space.
I love it. And Becca does the best at writing group scenes. Like sometimes like I'll write like, and I'll have
Krista,
like
you're
4 of the 6 characters in, and I'm like, if I add a couple more, it just becomes more complicated. And then Becca will come in and she'll be like, where are these other 2? And then she like adds them in. She's like, and I'm like, yes, I don't have to do the work, but I get to read it.
We gotta make it a party. We want everybody involved.
Yeah,
Exactly.
no one can be left behind.
Okay, so then one more kind of similar question. At the very end of the book of Dishonestly Yours, we finally get to see the parents in Victoria, and more specifically the godmothers. So what can we expect to see from Elizabeth, Addison, and Everett in this book?
So, yeah, in the first book, they're like this huge figurehead, and this book you sort of see them face to face, and you're getting way more of the relationships between them and all of their kids, which the kids are like the main cast. And without
Yeah.
spoiling too much, you get more answers.
I think that they're big secret keepers. They're like the biggest secret
Yeah.
keepers of the series. And this Destructively Mine is really about the main cast, like the kids, but they're not kids, they're in their 20s. But them coming to terms with the fact that their parents are these secret keepers and how to get those secrets from them in an honest way. But how do you do that? Because inherently the parents are con artists. So it's a very complicated situation. And it's all about the relationship with their parents and can they trust them?
Yeah, it's like, are they going to manipulate them? Will they tell them the truth if they, ask them these questions? But why would they tell them the truth? So yeah, it's a slippery slope for I want to say the kids, but like Krista said, they're not kids.
It's fine. I still consider myself a kid in the family.
Yeah.
The aunts and uncles are the adults and I'm the kid. It's fine. I still sit at the kids' table. But yeah, no, I think one of the interesting bits to this whole series is like the fact that they are con artists and like can deceive so well that like as a reader I'm sitting here and maybe I'm getting answers, maybe they're sharing something, but like can I trust it? I don't know if I trust them.
Yeah, it's like there's so much doubt in the words that are spoken. So yeah, it's extremely fun to write.
It's fun to read too, but yeah. Okay, so in the first book, we got plenty of flashbacks to past cons that these families have done. Are we going to get to see more flashbacks in this book?
Yes, there are flashbacks. In book 2, the flashbacks they relate specifically, I feel like, more to Phoebe and Rocky or some aspect of their lives, and they're not necessarily inside the con all the time the way that the other ones are in Dishonestly Yours. So it feels a bit different, which we really enjoyed when we were writing them.
Yeah, I think we constructed the cons in the first book as a way to showcase the side characters that were going to come into the small town later. So
Well,
it's a way for you to get to know them. And I think in the second book, like Becca said, they're more of a way for you to see the depth of Rocky and Phoebe's kind of friendship in the past.
well, and the other characters' relationships with them. I think that the first book really was because Phoebe goes into Dishonestly Yours as an ex-grifter, like she's quitting grifting. We wanted to sort of validate the fact that they are con artists and for you to actually see them in their element conning and make it believable, because it's one thing for them to be like, oh, we did this thing where we, conned assholes out of money and pretended to be rich and infiltrated these situations, but it's another for you to actually see it. And so we were like, we have to show them actually doing these things, or else the reader might not believe that they're actually con artists when they're here quitting. By book 2, we didn't have to get the reader to believe that they've done these things anymore. So we could use the flashbacks in other ways and really deepen the character relationships through them.
So I kind of mentioned it a little bit, but this book is chunky. Can you say how long it is comparable to other books that you've written? Do you know?
Let me look it up because
Yeah, Krista has all the stats. She's amazing. She is my Excel queen.
let me just look up the stats real quick.
I like that you have an Excel file with those stats.
Yeah, she has an Excel file for everything. I don't mess with Excel. She just sends me the sheets. I'm like, I don't know. This is some things I'm like, I wish she wouldn't do in Excel, because I'm like, these charts, I just don't understand. That's not the way my brain works, Krista. We need to put this in a Word doc.
A Word doc.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like charts.
I like making tables. Like I keep track of all of my reads throughout the year, and I have an Excel file that documents like all of the reads, what day I read them, and then I have it like broken down by month. And then I have a Notion. I don't know if you've used that before, but it's like an online
Yeah,
journaling thing, and I have a whole journal spread that does the same thing. I
that's
love that.
awesome. That's awesome. Krista, do you know?
Actually, didn't plug it in. I have
Think
to.
think
I'm
that
downloading. I'm downloading the
I'm pretty
actual.
sure that this is 100. How many words was it? 140?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. If
Yeah,
it's 140, I know where it is in comparison to everything
the
else. But
actual novel will have the first chapter. I think the ARC does too, but it has the first chapter of book 3 in the back.
I will say, I
So
know what
that's fun.
our longest book ever was 207,000 words,
Is that Nobody Like Us?
and that's nobody like us.
Which you can probably see behind me. This little Krista still gets on to me about this. If for the end of time, she'll get on to me about this. I swear to God, because
The only
we were
reason
writing it. This book specifically, we wrote side by side. Okay, it was the last book that we wrote when we were living together, and we wrote it side by side. I don't remember why exactly we did that, but I put my computer next to her computer at the same desk. Something was, I don't know, maybe I just needed a new, I don't know, maybe I was getting cooped up. Anyway, I was sitting next to her writing this, and she looks to me and she's like, "This book's almost done, right?" And it was at 100,000 words. And I said, "No, Krista, we are 50% through." And she was like, "What?"
like I was flabbergasted. I was like, "You're wrong. Like that cannot be real because like we are also encroaching on another deadline." And I was like, "This is not good. This is not good."
I said, look at our outline, look at the story structure. Tell me if this can be wrapped up in like 50 more pages. That's a big fat no.
So I did look it up. Destructively Mine is 127,000 words, which actually
Wow, that's really good. That's not bad.
it's number out of 31 books, it's number 16. So it's like in from biggest to smallest.
Wow,
So
it's actually not that long.
yeah, it's not
It
that
felt
long.
long. I remember reading and being like, I have to be at least halfway through at this point. And I looked at the percentage on my Kindle and it was like, ooh, no, you're at like
Yeah.
47%. Like, you're not there
It's
yet.
about 15,000 words longer than Dishonestly Yours.
See, I thought it was much longer. That's interesting. Well, that means that if it is like, I think it is like 500 actual physical. No, it's like 480 physical pages, but that also means sometimes I like when the font isn't too small. You know what I mean? Like when you're reading and it's an average font size.
I will say, yeah, so Berkeley, like they do I think that they do make their fonts bigger than our indie books because they're like their books have more pages than like other books that are like
Similar, similar, similar. No, I
similar.
can't say it.
Dude,
Similarly.
what is up with today? I like literally like I cannot talk. What are words?
It's
Oh
every
my
day
god.
for us. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's like I get it when like I guess like Broadway stars or like singers they have to do like voice like exercises. Maybe I need to do those before podcast.
We literally could never be audiobook narrators ever. I also don't pronounce half the words correctly. We realized as we got older that this was a twin thing and we would just mispronounce words to each other all the time and we would understand each other so no one would correct us.
Right. That's fair. I can see that happening, but no, I get it. Like, there's a reason I have notes in front of me because I like overthink the way I want to structure a sentence and then it just like doesn't come out the way I want it to. And I need to have it like written out in front of me. Sometimes I sound scripted and it's because I am scripted because otherwise no words would come out of my mouth that actually sound coherent.
I feel that deep in my soul.
My
I
problem
need
is I can have a script and I'll just read it backwards. And I'm just like, oh, what was the point, Becca?
Well, and then so for the Like Us read along, I had a whole script in front of me for like I made a video clarifying everything, and I had to like write out a script, and I needed to be really fast because I needed it under 3 minutes because Instagram will only let you have a 3 minute video. And I'm trying to go as fast, and I can't even read my script. I'm like getting lost with all of the words. It was fine. I got it eventually,
That's
but
relatable.
it took me 2 hours to get that because I
The
needed it
three
in one
minutes.
take. I'm not a video editor, and I was not going to be able to like do one part, splice it with another. It all needed to be in one take, and to do a 2.5 minute video took me 2 hours. It was fine.
Oh my gosh, that reminds me of like when like I think it was I like foreign publishers will sometimes ask for videos from me and Becca, and they take us so long for the same reason because we don't know how to splice or edit, and like we have to do it in one take, and like that one take usually is like 50 takes.
One of us will mess it up and it's like, again, we got to do it again.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Like my camera roll was just filled with scrapped ones, and you watch the end where I flub some word, and I'm saying, okay, fine. I'll end this and start again. It's great. It's that whole joke of like influencers actually, and you see them like, and then they press the pause and be like, hi, I'm so happy to be here. That's me recording it. Okay, so we talked about scrapping. Okay. Is there a certain scene or chapter that you're most looking forward to readers reaching? Like without spoiling, obviously.
100% for me. I don't know about you, Becca.
I have like three, but I would say like outside of there's one with the romance that's just like, oh my gosh, like OMG. Actually, there's multiple with the romance. There's so much about Phoebe and Rocky's romance I love about Destructively Mine. But there's so many big like twists in this book, and there's one that comes relatively close to the beginning. And that is one of my favorite chapters even to reread. I think it's because Krista wrote the first draft of it. So I just get ultimately giddy rereading it because I remember the first time that I read it and I was like freaking out and I was like, oh my gosh. And it was so good. So I just love rereading it, and it comes closer to the beginning. I can't really say much about it because it's such a big twist that ultimately changes the entirety of the book.
I feel like the twist at the beginning, when you read it, like you understand because I feel like that is the big twist at the beginning. For me, and maybe it's the same way because my one that I'm looking most forward to for readers reading is something that you wrote first, and that's like at the end of the book, and we always referred to it when we were discussing it and getting to the point where we were going to write it as the storm shelter chapter, or like scenes basically. We always like that was basically our reference, like get there, that's like the climax. And for me, I cannot wait for readers to read that part of the book.
Yeah, that stuff is so good. That was actually not part of the original draft. None of that. And we were pitching to each other ways to like fix the book. And I remember pitching that to Krista, hoping she would buy it. I actually set the mood up. I put on a song. I was like, visualize this. We're going to create some ambiance. Okay. Now, what do you think?
She was like, this is a CW show, just imagine it. I was like, okay, I'm fully invested.
Knowing what that scene is. Yeah. Yeah, that's all I can say about that. I'm trying really hard. This was going to be a lot easier when I hadn't read the book and I could tease, but like now I know what it's like being on your end, recording your teaser podcasts on Patreon. And I'm like, don't say anything.
Yeah, you want to talk about everything. It's so hard.
Okay. We know that the strawberry on the cover of Dishonestly Yours is because of Phoebe's love of strawberries, and we have a mountain laurel on Destructively Mine. Can you say anything about like why you chose a mountain laurel for this cover?
Well, the mountain laurel it's brought up one or two times in Dishonestly Yours. It's one of the like logos for the Victoria Country Club. So it's like really prominent in the town as a symbol. It's one of the town's flowers. So we actually, when we were discussing covers with Berkeley for this series, even for book one, the mountain laurel was an idea for Dishonestly Yours. And so when we were coming up with book two, we went back to it and we were like, okay, let's do that for that. But yeah, you'll see much more about that in the sequel.
Okay, so what kind of research was involved in writing this book?
I think it was about the same type of research that went into book one, which was we were really kind of looking about like cons and what makes a con artist, what type of personality goes into the type of people that are going to deceive other people, because that is not like a usual personality trait to have. So I feel like that was the biggest thing, and also just what goes into a con and running a con, because there is a big con in Destructively Mine, and so we kind of had to make sure everything was tied together and believable.
Yeah, pretty much what Krista said. I think that the biggest thing was trying to get into the psyche of an actual con artist, and so we read like a lot of nonfiction about con artists from history.
Interesting. So, sort of a similar thing. I don't remember when you guys finished this, but did being in Mystic over the summer inspire any part of you writing Victoria?
That's a good question. I think that we were still, did we turn in the first draft already? Yeah, we had turned in the rough draft. So when we were in Victoria, the book was complete. But then when we got back from the tour, that's when we started actually like overhauling the book. So I think that I think that it always helps being in like the city or the area that the book is like inspired from. I don't know if we pulled anything in particular. I can't remember if we did.
I think we did, but it definitely, like Krista said, it definitely helps create sort of like an aura aesthetic. Like I feel like we can write the area of Victoria more like authentically in a way.
I
Hmm.
was like, so we were there over the summer and I was just shocked how humid it was. Just like the humidity was so surprising to me. Cause like when you think of like somewhere like in the north, like I don't know, like in the summer, I wouldn't expect it to feel like so sticky like that.
We
So
did,
I
but
so I feel like that is something that definitely influenced.
yeah, we did write it. We did write about the humidity when they first arrived to Victoria because they're
Yeah.
in August in Dishonestly Yours. But like Krista said, I was like, well, we theorized that it would be like this, but like actually being there and being like, okay, this
Cause
this
like
definitely feels like sticky coastal.
I've been in New England before, but not during the summer. So like that was just like surprising to me. But yeah, it was accurate. Like it was interesting.
So, I don't know if you've mentioned this, but do you plan to write any bonus scenes on Patreon for this series?
I think we might. I mean, it's definitely a possibility. We actually were going to post a bonus scene. It was an outtake from Destructively Mine. It was an outtake, and I wanted it in the book so badly, but it just did not fit anymore. But we were able to rework it in for Dangerously Ours, so we ended up not posting it on Patreon, which was probably a good thing because now it's in another book. But I definitely feel like if there's, a deleted scene or if we feel inspired to write bonuses, we will. Everything comes down to inspiration for Patreon. It's just what do we feel, inspired to write.
Yeah. Also, if there's, I feel like it's not only inspiration sometimes, but if like readers really like keep telling us like, hey, I want to see this specific thing, and like we get that over and over and over, I feel like sometimes that's like, oh, like people actually really want to read this thing, and I feel like that also it kind of like inspires us because we're like they're.
Yes. When I
So
when yeah, when we see readers talking about scenes like in depth, it like triggers me to like want to go write it. I'm like, okay, I've got to go write them. I've got to write these characters. Y'all are like making me re-obsessed with them.
Yeah.
Got to do it.
And I do think that when you get to book 3, I do feel like we might be more inspired after the series is over to write bonus scenes for particular side characters, just because uh I feel like the series is just a trilogy, and I feel like there's going to be some sort, at least for me, there might be,
Yeah.
I anticipate some sort of like yearning to really like write with other characters, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I feel that. I feel that we talk about all the time that we really it breaks our hearts knowing things like end, which is why the Addicted verse like really like specifically the Hales, Meadows, Cobalts, they're not going to come to an end anytime soon because I just like my heart can't take it. I need to see what happens. There's just so much I want to see. And so I have to tell myself, nothing really ends in order for me to like carry on.
That's fair. It's crazy though to like think that once people have read Destructively Mine, we're already 2/3 of the way through this series. Like, what do you mean we only have one more book left? I'm not used to that idea. At least coming from you guys, like with your really long series, I'm always like, where's the next one? I want more, please.
I think that is the hardest thing about this series is like when we wrote book 2, knowing we only have one book left. So we were like, don't bring up like too many extra things that you're gonna have to close. It's gonna be too difficult. This is just 3 books. Chill. Like we kept telling ourselves to chill.
Okay, so was there anything during the book tour that like a reader maybe guessed about just the overall like plot that you have for the rest of the books in the series? Was there something that a reader guessed that shocked you but they got wrong, or something that shocked you and they also got it right?
It's a good question. I don't feel like many told us their
Theories.
theories. Yeah, I feel like we didn't get a lot of theories unless
Yeah.
Becca, did you?
No, there's been a lot of theories on side character relationships because, I mean, if you've read our books, we love a side romance, okay? Television, side romances, just they speak to me. And so we love a good side romance. So there is like side romantic things happening, questions involved, what's going to happen. And so we've had a lot of people have theories about that. We obviously know the truth, so it's like fun for us. I would say they're all over the place to where like some are inherently correct because just everything has been guessed at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Law of averages and all that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. Okay. As a reader, this is submitted, so I have to. As a reader, it's like you guys are already brilliant. The writing gets better and better, and I don't even think that's possible once I finish the last book. Does your process feel more seamless or get easier, or do the books actually get harder to write because you know more and more?
That's such a good question. Um, is this in terms of like the series specifically, or just like writing in general over like all of our careers? Do
I
you
mean,
think?
whichever one you want to answer.
I think you go, Becca.
Well, I would have said that I feel like Webs We Weave is just its own beast because, like we said at the beginning of the podcast, we split up, like we moved out, and literally the first book that we've written being separated, which was just a challenge in itself for us of not just being able to pop in and be like, this is what I'm thinking, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
so I feel like it's its own separate thing. That's what made that one, I think, a little bit more challenging than normal. But as far as like our series as a whole, when you have more information, it gets harder. I think that's like case in, like, wouldn't you agree, Krista?
So I think it's like twofold. I think that when you have more backstory because you can't retcon things, obviously it gets harder because you have history with the characters and it has to all make sense. But at the same time, I think writing the characters is so much easier the more you progress because you have their voices down, you like know their personalities more. So like the actual like act of writing a character is so much easier as you progress through a series. Like writing Rocky and Phoebe, so much easier in book 2 than book 1. but the issue was the plot. Like, it was just
Yeah.
like the construction of the story gets harder because you have so much more information that you're dealing with and trying not to like over inundate the reader. So I think that there's like pros and cons as you keep writing more.
Yeah,
I mean, with it,
I was gonna say, I think book twos tend to be like the hardest because you're making sure that they're staying in character and voice. But by book three, it's like you know the characters so well that you don't even have to like worry about that anymore.
yeah, I 100% agree with that. Like book three is like the sweet spot because it's like it almost is like you could write the characters in your sleep. I mean, with the Addicted series and Lily and Low, like by Addicted After All, I felt like I could literally write anything in their voice. Like I could like just write, I don't know, like a check. I don't even know. I could write a dictionary in their voice. Like it was so easy. And I that's just like the nature of being in a character's head for so long. And I think that when you're starting with book one, that is 100% the hardest thing is like trying to find like a voice for these characters that's really unique and individualized that doesn't sound like any of the other characters you've ever written. And yeah, so book two.
Yeah. And also like, okay, so Cobalt Empire series, we're writing Burn Bright right now. And I think that we talk about this all the time while we're writing it. We have like this book, this whole series, Burn Bright, brand new series, can be read without having read anything else we've ever written. Not one single book. Like you can just come in to us straight at Burn Bright. But we know the characters so well because we have 13 books of backstory with just Ben Cobalt growing up. Like we know, I mean, that's just the Like Us series, not including even Some Kind of Perfect, which is like sort of his introduction into life. And we know so much about him that I think it's making the book so much richer in a way. Like, wouldn't you agree, Krista?
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And it's easier to write. Like, I think writing Ben's character, like, versus writing a character that we know no backstory, it would be, like, so much more difficult.
They feel like so multidimensional, and we talk about this all the time without the Like Us series and having all of these things already happen to him that we know have happened to him coming in. I don't know. He's just a fully figured person to
Yeah.
me.
But yeah, I agree. I agree overall. Book twos are the hardest to write. Book two.
That was our long another like 30-minute answer.
Okay, that's what this long form podcast is for. It'd be really lame if we were just giving like, yes, it is easier. Next question. Okay. So another reader submitted question was basically, can you tell us, you've mentioned that Dishonestly Yours, like we would know what time frame it took place in the entire Addicted verse. Could you tell us what time frame that is?
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, if you've read Dishonestly Yours, there's a drop at the very end about Fizz Life. One of the older ladies at the country club is like, I want to order Fizz Life. And Phoebe is a server there and she's like, what is that? And she's like, you know, it's this brand new soda that's on the market. But Phoebe looks it up and she realizes that it hasn't come out yet. Like it's supposed to come out in January. Well, in the Addicted series, there is the unveiling of Fizz Life soda, the drink of the future. And it's in Ricochet in January. And so that sort of sets the timetable for the Webs We Weave series. And in that instance, you would know at that point that the Halloween scene in, you know, Dishonestly Yours actually takes place during the same year of the Halloween party in Addicted to You. So same
Yeah.
timeline as the
Yeah.
Addicted series.
I say that it's like, it was a dramatic Halloween for everybody.
Yeah.
It really was.
Okay, but to go off of that, so we had a couple of like Easter egg mentions from the Addicted series that we recognize. Will we get more in Destructively Mine?
Yes, but I would say that you're going to get the most in Dangerously Ours because if you look at the timeline, you really have to look at the timeline of the Addicted series and what ends up happening, and really look at the months and timeline that we're in for, I'll just say that the summer takes place in Dangerously Ours. I'll just say that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I know what happened. I'm very familiar with what happens in that series, so I can guess what's gonna crop up. And then the last question that I had for you guys was, where did it go? It's basically, can you describe Destructively Mine in 3 words? Or like, what 3 words would you use to describe it?
I would say passionate, unhinged, and deceptive.
Wow, I like those three. I was gonna come up with my own three, but I may just say duplicate. Same.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, those are all the questions that I had. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to share about this book?
I think we shared one thing already about, we were going to talk about how this book was our favorite book, and we were most proud of this book. If someone asked us like craft wise, what is your favorite book? And I would say craft wise, it would be this book. This is our favorite, best well-crafted book in our eyes. Obviously, this is like recency bias, but like I still believe that this will live on for a long time. I used to always say Alphas Like Us was one of my favorites in terms of just structure, how we structured it. Like I was by far up there, like top 3, but this has probably taken that spot for me. And then I think we wanted to talk about a little bit, or a question that we had on tour. I'm pretty sure it was during the Phoenixville stop in Pennsylvania, which you actually attended, Haley. And someone asked us if we relate to anything in the series, because generally in almost every single book we've ever written, there's some piece of me or Krista or both of us that we've sort of
my
like.
question.
Was your question? See, it was such a good question. I still remember it. Brilliant, Haley. So yeah, so there's always some piece of us like in a certain book. I can probably pick out at least one thing out of every single novel that we've written that we've either experienced ourselves or we pulled from something that we've gone through. And this series, I think most especially in Destructively Mine, you see it. So when we were like answering it at the tour, it was a little harder because it more so pertained, I think, to the book that we had just written when we were on tour, which was Destructively Mine. And our answer for that, Krista, do you want to talk about it, or do you just want me to keep going? I feel bad because I'm like.
No, you can keep going.
Okay,
You're doing great.
Okay. Yeah. So me and Krista, being obviously we're twins, we're identical twins, but as we've gotten older, we look less and less alike. Sometimes, we look more alike and we don't realize it, and people can't tell us apart. But when we were growing up, I think especially for identical twins in high school, it's extremely difficult because people see you as a unit. They don't really individualize you. You sort of have to create labels for yourself to have an identity, because people are going to ask you, they're going to be like, which one is like that more athletic one, which one's the smart one, things like that. So if you don't subscribe it to yourself, someone else is just going to give it to you. They're going to be like, that's the shy one. So for us, we thought a lot about how the con artist kids who are now in their 20s were raised, and the fact that they all have these labels. Rocky is the silver tongue, Phoebe is the seductress, Haley is the mastermind, and you learn in Dishonestly Yours like how they were given the labels. And then in Destructively Mine, it sort of dives deeper into like the psychological effect that having these sort of roles and specific labels and things that they're supposed to do, how it mentally affects them throughout the book. Like, I don't know, it's one of my favorite parts of Destructively Mine, and it comes into play big time, and the characters think about it a lot, about what.
Did I see a tail?
Mr.
There's a cat.
just made an appearance. I miss him so much. That's our cat. Well, now he's just Krista's cat. I feel like I'm, I don't know what I am to Mr. Frodo anymore. The sister that is gone. But yeah, so that's basically a huge aspect of the book that we sort of relate to, because it's sort of like a curse being labeled a thing because you feel like you have to aspire to it. And what if you aren't living up to it in some degree? Or you feel like, is that all I am? Is that the best part of me?
Yeah. And I also feel like they take on these monikers, these labels, so much more than the average person would because they don't really like they have names, but they're not their real names. Like
Yeah.
they don't
Their
like
identities are in question.
they're so muddled, like their actual identities, that these monikers are like the things that they gave each other that feel set in stone. And I feel like a lot of the characters really want to adhere to them because it is a sense of identity and purpose, and maybe they don't have that in other aspects. So I think it is a really interesting thing, and I love it being a twin because
Yeah.
labels are a huge part of our lives growing up, and feeling like a sense of responsibility to adhere to the label in which someone gave you, you gave yourself. It does take a toll, and I think that it is an interesting thing for the series. Also, the labels are interesting because, like, I mean, like, they're being labeled like seductress,
I know.
psychopath, chameleon. It's not like they're not normal.
Yeah, it's not the shy one or the funny one. It's like some of these aren't necessarily like kind words that you'd want associated with you.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that was all I have to talk about. Thank you for joining me and wanting to talk about.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
for having
us.
us. We love to talk, obviously.
Maybe
Probably
too much.
probably me more than Krista. I apologize, Krista, if I talked over you, but
No, I definitely talked over you. It's great.
I mean, we love long podcasts anyway. This is the shortest by far, but like we're talking to the person who turned one book into a 4 podcast episode. Like it was fine. 4 episode podcast.
and they're
That's
great though. Like honestly, your podcasts are so good to where it made me I started rereading Ricochet after I listened to the Ricochet podcast because I was like, I just want to be back. I just need to I just need to go back.
yeah, I usually like reread the books like twice a year. And this year I felt like I read it once over the summer and then I started the podcast in September and I was like, I actually really don't think I need to reread the books anymore at like a second time in the year because I'm just like I've been sitting here talking about them. I've basically reread the book at this point. If I'm going into this much depth, like I don't need to reread it again.
Yeah, if anyone could win a trivia quiz, it would probably be you.
Like I think it's funny because I've seen people with the Fizz Life mention like they get that that's the clue of what the timeline is, but they don't know when it takes place. And listeners of this podcast know that I'll never let it go that I messed up the question about Fizz Life in the Ricochet trivia quiz. Don't worry, I knew exactly when that took place because Fizz Life is like burned into my brain that one mistake that I made. And I'm like, yes, I know when this happened. Don't worry.
So when we have like trivia quizzes, Becca makes them all up and then she like gives them to me. Like I have to take them as if I'm a reader. And I like sweat during it because obviously I'm like one of the authors. And I feel like if I get one wrong, like that's really bad. And I end up always like getting at least one wrong because my memory sucks so bad. I think that Becca, you make them tricky. Like there are some where I'm like,
Haley's are trickier because Haley had trivia on her Instagram stories, and I would take them, and only Haley can see my answers. Okay, and whenever I would get one wrong, I'd be like, I'm so embarrassed. But you know
I was
what?
supposed to talk. You got them all right. What are you talking about?
But I had to test myself, and I'll never get it wrong now.
I'm actually shocked you would get any wrong because Becca rereads the books like all the time.
Yeah, I do. They're like well, they're like comforting to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
They make me want to write too, which is always good because we have to write more. So, what better way?
Yeah,
Exactly.
we want more books. I loved hearing all about you writing Ben. That makes me happy.
Ben is
Oh
so
yeah.
fun to write. It's wild.
Yeah, I think readers of I was thinking about this the other day, but I think that readers who've only read the Addicted series and readers who've also read the Leica series are both going to really enjoy the Cobalt Empire series, because theoretically, I was thinking about this, you could, I think, just read Some Kind of Perfect too and get like a lot out of Ben and like what is going on with him in the same way as like reading the full Leica series. Obviously, if you read all of the books, you have like the most backstory and like, you'll see the most Easter eggs, but like we said, it can be totally just single person coming in,
Yeah, you could be brand new to these two and jump
yeah,
into Cobalt
into the
Empire.
whole world.
Yeah.
It's a really good starting place too for, I think, for the whole world. I'm one of those people, when authors have second gen series, I actually sometimes start at the second gen and I don't start at the first generation, which is bizarre, I know, but I like starting at the second gen and seeing if I like the parents. That was so weird.
It's almost like you got to see like will they inflict trauma on their children? Like how yeah, it's like how are the kids treated? Are they happy? Like do I want to
Yeah.
go back and read the parents and the trauma that they went through and that they're sharing with their children now?
Gosh, that's so true. Like, judge them first as parents and then go read their story.
Which I think holds up for like if you were to start with the Leica series or the Cobalt Empire series, like the parents are they're good parents. They're very good parents. So it's like, yeah, okay, I can jump back and you're gonna have to go all the way back and see all of their growth to actually get to them as parents, but they're good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting for readers who haven't read Rose and Connor and they see them as the parents of Ben and all the Cobalt children.
People are, I feel
How they
like
come across.
there's no way you're
I
not gonna love Rose. Like,
Yeah,
I
there's just
mean,
like absolutely and
Rose,
Connor like
yeah, and Connor, but like Rose as a mom is just,
she's like
she's,
kick ass. Like
yeah,
she's just like the
she's so
mom like
badass.
yeah.
Yeah, Rose.
So I'm excited. I think that a lot of readers might do a Becca and read the second gen and be like, okay, I need to read
Yeah, I need
the
to read a
parents
Rose
now.
and Connor falling in love. See, that would be me. I would probably read Burn Bright first thing that I've ever read of ours, and then go, oh my God, I've got to read Rose and Connor.
Hmm.
You made me wonder because you were like, we're doing really well with it. So you've mentioned that Dishonestly Yours is like your favorite introduction to a series and it like used to be Damaged Like Us. Do you feel like there's pressure with Burn Bright or do you feel like you've got like it's got it in the bag? It's going to be an even better first start to a series.
I think
I think it's different because it's like Ben's only getting one book. Like whereas like Dishonesty or is Damage like every other one of our I guess it's like a more and more would be like the closest to this
Mhm.
because it's like it has to close, at least like has to end in an HEA, but
the story, yeah, the family arcs continue.
yeah,
Like this,
so it's like
there's an overarching story arc, but it's like his arc like is contained to this. But at the same time, I think that this does have the potential to be like the best like opener of a series in a really, I mean, it's, I love
I
it
think
so
it's going to
much.
be the most fulfilling because
Yeah.
it has that beginning, middle, and end. Like, whereas, like, I feel like the end of the Addicted to You, even like Damage Like Us and Dishonesty Ours, definitely feel like to be
Well,
continued.
an introductory to the world. Like
Yeah,
specifically, and we wrote Damaged Like Us as though it's an introductory to the world, and this one is written in a different way. Like I don't even know how to.
I don't think that this one is written in a way like we're introducing you. Like, we obviously are introducing new readers, but the plot is so strong. Like, this might be one of my favorite plots that we've ever done, and I think that's
Yeah.
why it might take the threshold, like just in terms of like the character arcs and the plot within it and the romance plot, like it all like hits for me. So I think that is why it probably would be my favorite when we finish. If yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's definitely like the most satisfying
Yeah.
because
I
it
definitely feel
doesn't
like
work
that.
just as like an intro to the world. It's so much meatier.
Yeah. Like the
Yeah.
character arcs. I think the character arcs are definitely like the best thing in like Ben's and his love interest and yeah.
I would say anyone who's looking for like burn bright teases and stuff, we like to put things on Pinterest and even on our Instagram. The Meet the Cobalts has a very subtle sort of tease of something that a way that people get introduced that I is one of my absolute favorite parts of the entire books.
I'm gonna go back and
Yeah.
I don't
pick
think
up.
Yeah, I'm
anyone
gonna go back. I can't
I
remember.
don't think anyone's gonna get it. Like I don't think that like you'll get it'll click until like you read the book. But or until you read the blurb, because I think there's going to be, if they go with our blurb that we've written for it, there will be like a little nod to it. It probably makes no sense now. Replay this back when the book's out. All right. It'll all come together.
Yes, I'm
You
gonna
guys,
remember this.
I'm just so excited for this book. Like, it's crazy because I feel like I'm so excited for Destructively Mine as well. Like, I think Destructively Mine and Burn Bright are like the two books like I'm just the most excited for readers to read
Oh,
by far.
we talked about this the other day that I think the past 2 years we've written some of our highest quality books at not to knock any of the others because I was rereading Damaged Like Us the other day, and I was like, "This banter is the best banter we've ever written. What we can't outdo this." And so I was like, "It's just all downhill in banter from here." Thank you, Max Knopf and Farrow. But there's just something about the past 2 years. I just feel like we really got into a really good groove, and they've been some of the best quality we've put out. And I think that Burn Bright and Destructively Mine, like this might be like the starlight of our year. I just feel it deep in my bones.
Yeah, I feel like 2025, I feel like the two books are just like, they are like that caliber, you know? Like, they're like, yeah, for us at
Well,
least.
and
I mean,
like
we're biased.
and
I don't know.
and we're coming off of Nobody, like, which is one of my favorite books of all time. Like I think if someone had to say favorite of the Like Us series, I would have to say Nobody Like Us, just because it has so much in it and I just love so much about it. But then like I start going through all of them. I mean, do you do the same thing, Haley? Like I literally am like, but wait a minute, this one. Wait a minute, alphas. Wait a minute. Like I love Unlucky Like Us. I was just reading that one the other day. Okay.
I think you've seen one of them. Alan loves to do these. She'll send a question. She's like, prepare for the pain. And it's pick your 6 favorite books. And most recently was like, pick the other 5 in your core 6. And I'm like, this is my answer at like this very specific time on this very specific day, and you can ask me this question like maybe 2 minutes later and it's going to be a different answer because it's like, oh wait, but I forgot about this person or I forgot about this book. Like usually I have to pick it as like one from this one and one from this series so that like everyone at least kind of gets all of the love. I just can't ignore any of them. It hurts too much.
That
It's like
is
picking favorite children.
yes, exactly.
I love that disclaimer. I'm going to be using that. This is like my answer right now, but in the future, even like 5 minutes from now,
Yeah.
it's going to be different.
That's why I said we might have recency bias about our books right now because I'm sure I would have felt this way when we finished the other ones. I don't know, you know.
I agree.
I will say though, like you were talking about, like you guys have hit this groove and like you've been doing this for 11 years, almost 12 years now. Like your craft has improved over the course of all of these books. You've written 31 books. So like that's what I always tell people is you love the Addicted series, but like their writing gets even better when you get to the Like Us series. Like you want to read all of their good writing. You got to get all of it, people.
That's what, yeah, I'm rereading the Addicted series, a lot of the books right now, and I can just tell our writing has improved drastically from those, which those are will always be like the most beloved. But there's something about the Like Us series that is just it's more economically written and which makes it like more of a comfort read to me and why I always go back to them to reread. They just have this like really feel good quality. Not that the Addicted series doesn't have that. It's just for me as a writer, like seeing like our writing has improved so much. It's easier for me to read the Like Us series in that sense. I mean, do you agree, Krista?
Yeah, I mean, I don't reread them as much because I get so in my head when I reread. Becca like is able to just like, just
Get immersed
reread
back in the
them.
story. Yeah,
Yeah, and
Krista
like
is too
I'm
critical.
very critical. Like I start like picking things I would have done this differently, and like so it's definitely a little harder for me to reread, but I definitely just feel like the Leica series has such a different tone than the Addicted series. Like the Leica series is, like you said, it is very comforting because I feel like it's just like it's fun in a way where like you just like want to be in the world because it's like a fun world. Whereas like the Addicted series is like painful in a way that like the Leica series like doesn't have. So
I would
At least
say,
up until the end. Then the end gets
yes,
yeah.
brutal. You
I
fall
exactly.
in
would
love with
say
her.
for the Cobalt Empire series, it's a mixture of both. I think that it
I was
goes back
wondering
to
that.
being more angsty like the Addicted series, which is why I say, like, I think that it is a good jump for someone who has only read the Addicted series into it, and for people who also have read the Leica series to jump into it, and for new readers. So I think it just works on like every aspect. The tone does.
And I also just feel like it feels a little bit more like the Addicted series because Ben is 19, like centered around college, which is like what the Addicted series is. I feel like sometimes like the Leica series, like even though the characters are in their young 20s, I do sometimes feel like they feel older. And I feel like you feel like Ben is a 19-year-old. He still has, he's has a very close relationship with his parents. His parents are checking in like
Well,
he is a 19-year-old.
you definitely feel like his brothers are older too.
Yeah, his brothers are like treating him like he's 19, like he is like the little brother. Yeah, so like it is something that I really love because I feel like it's been a while since we've like been back to like new adult, and it definitely feels like this is a guy who is recently like he is in college and he hasn't been out in his own apartment for like years for like Maximoff and Jane like living in the townhouse. Like it is a very different dynamic.
Well, also Maximoff and Jane, I mean, they were raised as the oldest of the characters in ways that, Ben, like the younger kids didn't have the same type of responsibility. We always say that they're like two outliers.
And yeah, you read them and they feel like big sibling characters. Like they have the responsibility of like big siblings. And you read Ben and he definitely does not have that.
I like that. Yeah, no, I'm very excited for Ben. He stole my heart at the end of Some Kind of Perfect. That very last chapter. I'm like, my sweet Ben.
Yeah.
I want you to have your happy ending.
He's going through so much. It's like the perfect time for his book to come out because it's like sort of the climax of his life and things are happening. And so it is a really good, perfect sort of intro. Definitely the best brother to open up the Cobalt Empire series. Especially because just seeing his relationship with the other brothers and seeing the other brothers through his perspective is like one of my favorite things. And Audrey and Jane. So can't forget about Audrey. She would be like, where is my mention in this podcast?
I've been forgotten.
She's like, I'm the closest to Ben. What's going on?
Okay, so that was a fun Destructively Mine / Burn Bright teaser.
We
Love
can't
it.
help ourselves.
Okay. I had my burning questions about it and I was like, this is the wrong book. Like, stay on theme.